Fox News alert. An awful story. 14 people hurt after a driver purposely plowed into a crowd of people overnight in Melbourne, Australia.
Griff Jenkins is following the breaking story for us. Griff, do we think it was terror-related?
Good morning, guys. Not terror-related, but two men are in custody in Australia when their SUV plowed into a busy shopping area in central Melbourne, packed with Christmas shoppers shortly before 5 p.m. local. Authorities say that 14 people were injured, several taken to hospitals, one a child with a head injury. And while the motive wasn't immediately clear, police say it was deliberate.
At this stage, we believe it is a deliberate act. However, we do not know the motivation, and it is still early stages of the investigation.
Police say the driver is a 32-year-old man of Afghan descent with a history of drug abuse and mental health issues, but no links to terrorism or extremism as of yet. But the investigation continues. Witnesses said the vehicle was traveling at about 60 miles an hour, running a red light, crashing into pedestrians before Good Samaritans rushed to the car and launched an attack. But that, too, not terror-related. We'll see what the latest details bring as we get more from the authorities this morning.
Yeah,
all right, Griff.
Way too familiar. Hey, Griff, thanks so much. Meanwhile, 4 minutes after the top of the hour, one thing is for certain. There are two sides to this tax reform. Massive, first time in 30 years. I guess they agree on that. But whether it's going to help or hurt the economy and the country, we couldn't be more apart.
Well, let's think about this. Does anybody really like to pay taxes?
No.
You feel like your tax money in Washington is going to good use? Some of it, national defense and stuff like that.
Shrimp on a treadmill? No.
What happened yesterday was the people of the United States of America, and corporations as well, are going to be able to keep more of their money. And that is a good thing. And I don't know how the Democrats think that it's such a bad thing other than he did it. Yesterday was Donald Trump's best day of his presidency. He wound up with his tax cut, which also repealed the individual mandate and opened up parts of ANWR. That's something that Republicans have been striving for decades. And that guy in the blue tie, actually a lot like the tie Brian's wearing right now, got it all done.
It's the largest tax cut in the history of our country. And reform, but tax cut.
Mr. President, you fulfilled the promise you made to millions of Americans struggling in this economy. A middle-class miracle. And that's exactly what the Congress passed today.
What we did last night and what the House finished this morning means America is going to start growing again. Thank you, Mr. President, for all you're doing.
What this represents is a promise that each and every one of us made to the American people last year is a promise that is kept today.
We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to make this the greatest presidency that we've seen, not only in generations, but maybe ever.
This is a great day for our country, a great day for our economy, and a great day for America. Thank you, Mr. President.
This is a big day for America. This is America's comeback.
Merry Christmas, America.
Do you remember when President Bush sent out all those checks? I remember, I think I was in college or right after that.
$1,000.
Yeah, I needed that money so badly. And that's what's happening with companies now. They heard that announcement yesterday. They saw that the tax reform bill was passed. And so now they're already shelling out money to some of their employees.
They can afford it.
That's right. Economists say this is going to bring $250 billion back into the U.S. and companies are already benefiting and they're giving it back to the workers.
So you got AT&T that jumped out, and that's the president actually handled this like breaking news. Shepard Smith moved over. He said, I just got a hold of this. AT&T is going to start reacting now and bringing back millions to our shores. They're going to add 200,000 employees, and they're going to give 200,000 employees $1,000 each.
That's right. And they're going to increase capital spending by $1 billion. They feel that now that they're cutting their taxes, they can afford it. Wells Fargo is going to hike their hourly rate to $15 an hour. Fifth Third Bank will raise the minimum payment to $15 per hour, which is great. And everybody gets a one-time bonus of $1,000. And Comcast is going to wind up giving out $1,000 bonuses to more than 100,000 employees.
Non-executive employees.
That's right. And they're going to invest $50 billion into infrastructure. And the big plane maker, Boeing, $300 million employee and charitable investment. They're able to invest because the top corporate rate yesterday went from 35 to 21. 14%, what's going to happen to that? Those corporations just gave it back to the people who work
All right,
for
so
them.
if you listen to the Democrats, and we're going to play some sound, listen carefully to what they say, because they talk about how this is helping the rich, this is helping the executives, this is helping the companies. But that list that you and Brian just read, non-executive employees, hourly, 3,000 hourly employees at Fifth Third Bank, hourly employees at Wells Fargo. This is helping the little guy, the guys who made $13, $13.50 an hour. Now they're going to be making $15 an hour. So listen to what the Democrats are saying, though.
Now, we know they're popping champagne down Pennsylvania Avenue. There are only two places where America's popping champagne: the White House and the corporate boardrooms, including Trump Tower. Otherwise, Americans have a lot to regret.
After all the president's promises, after all Republicans brazenly transparent misrepresentations to the American people, the true face of what Republicans stand for has been revealed.
Well, it is a victory for billionaires like Donald Trump. It's a victory for wealthy campaign contributors like the Koch brothers. But this is a disaster for the American people.
Which is strange, because if you look at what's happening in a lot of the major high-tax states like New York and California and New Jersey, those who earn the most are actually getting almost, to some degree, a tax increase, and the top bracket goes from 39 to 37. The other brackets go conceivably much lower. But if you look at the other side and you understand that most of the networks are doing that, you understand, too, why, when asked about this plan, will you save money, will you pay less taxes, most Americans are down on that prospect. It's not a mystery. It's because everybody was running down the plan even before the ink was dry.
It's because the mainstream media has been saying, oh, this thing's it's gonna be bad for the middle class. In New Jersey yesterday, Chris Christie, who's only got about a month left on the clock before he retires from the job as governor, he suggested that in high-tax states, for instance, New Jersey, he said, why don't we make all those state and local taxes, property taxes, fully deductible at the state level? That's something they could do. It would cost them $150 million. Why don't they do it? Because they're spending it on something else. They don't want to do that. They could. They've driven up the tax rate in these states so high, and this is a way out. They're not going to do anything about it.
I just don't understand why the Democrats, if you look at the majority of the country and you look at the tax brackets, the majority of the country is not going to pay as much in taxes. Definitely going to save money. You're going to have more money to feed your kids, to send them to college. So I don't understand how they can look at these numbers and say it's not going to happen. They're going to be eating crow if more companies continue to do this. I mean, this is day one. It hasn't even been 24 hours since this was signed by or passed by both by House and Senate, and already companies are giving back to their employees. If this continues to happen, and because of the corporate tax rates going down, if more companies stay in the U.S. and move to the U.S., our economy is just going to boom.
Ainsley, if the companies don't act responsibly and forecast that they just got the break of a lifetime, everyone's watching to see what they do. If they make the president look bad and they put it into dividends or they give themselves CEOs bonuses, they're never going to see this again. No Republican could ask for it again. No Democrat would not run on it if these corporations don't act responsibly.
See, they've got a lot more money. They've started to give it to the people. Go ahead and make some bigger dividends.
Listen,
if you're a stock market investor, you want a bigger dividend. That's okay.
Julian, we're going to hand it over to you for headlines. But if you're hearing us talk about these companies, go and support these companies, because they're giving back to their employees. And we'll continue to talk about the companies that are giving back to the little people.
And then repatriate some of these funds. There's something like over $2 trillion overseas.
All right, so buy a Boeing airplane, Julian.
I have AT&T, so I'm supporting.
There you go.
I got Comcast.
All right, there we go. We're already on a roll. Good morning, guys. We do have some breaking news to get to, though, starting with the Fox News alert. Overnight, South Korea firing 20 warning shots after yet another North Korean soldier defects from the brutal regime. This marks the fourth North Korean soldier to escape to the south this year. And we're now seeing brand new pictures of joint American military drills with South Korea, who are reportedly training to capture North Korea's nuclear weapons. The horrific tour bus crash that left 8 Americans dead now being blamed on the driver. Mexican prosecutors say he was likely speeding when the bus lost control, hit a tree, and flipped on its side. The passengers headed from cruise ships to tour the nearby Mayan ruins. Among Americans killed, 3 people from the same family, including an 11-year-old boy. While you were sleeping, history being erased in a major American city. Cranes taking down 2 Confederate statues in parks in Memphis, Tennessee. The memorials honoring Jefferson Davis and Nathan Bedford Forrest. It comes just one day after the city council voted to sell the public parks to private entities. The statues will now be preserved in an undisclosed location. Let's look at your headlines. I will send it back to you guys.
Look at that. They're selling the parks.
Yep.
Who knew? All right. Jillian,
Thanks,
thank you. All right. Coming up on this Thursday, President Trump doubling down on this promise.
We will get rid of chain migration and the visa lottery program.
Steve Cortez is the son of an immigrant, and he agrees why he says it's a matter of national security. You'll hear from him next.
Plus, do you think your vote doesn't count? Literally tied.
Uh-oh.
We will get rid of chain migration and the visa lottery program. They come in because one guy gets in, then you bring the whole family. And not a lot of jobs there either, I want to tell you. Not a lot of working jobs.
All right, just yesterday, President Trump doubling down on his calls to end chain migration. Our next guest, who is the son of an immigrant, agrees. In a new op-ed on FoxNews.com, Steve Cortez writes, quote, our president's misbegotten policies must be reformed to select immigrants based on merit rather than family ties. Joining us right now to discuss this is Fox News contributor and former Trump Hispanic Advisory Council member Steve Cortez. Steve, the naysayers would say we're about keeping families together when they come here. What do you say?
Well, Brian, I would say I'm okay with the nuclear family, meaning a spouse or minor children. But the idea that your bloodline should be the primary driver of who gets into this country, I think is just ludicrous. 70% of immigrants to the United States in recent years are because of chain migration, because they are sponsored by a relative who already lives here. And by the way, it can be a distant relative.
Right.
And here's the reality. It doesn't make economic sense, and it doesn't make national security sense. On the economic side, the majority, and listen, I love immigration, but we have to do it better. The majority of immigrant-headed households in the United States right now receive some form of welfare. Now, that is totally different to the immigration realities that were faced by people like my father, by many of our grandparents, great-grandparents who came here, and they expected nothing but an opportunity in the United States.
Right.
That's not the reality right now. We have to change that.
Well, the president wants to make it more of a draft and less of a lottery. Right. Here's some stats that I think would help enlighten everybody why you have this point of view. The majority of green cards issued in the United States, 65% family-based immigration. So because one person's here, the rest get to come without screening just because they're related. 15% are refugees and 7% are family of employment-based immigrants, 6% based on immigrants and 5% based on the visa lottery system. Overall, last year, in terms of immigrants, in 2016, 804,000 came here through chain. In 2015, that was 678. So this is trending in the wrong direction. Right. I sense that Democrats, to a degree, agree, and there might be something being done behind the scenes for some massive immigration reform. Is that what you're hearing?
You know, I think so. I think that's in the offing. I think we're going to have a deal in January where the president exchanges permanent protection for DACA recipients in exchange for an end to, or at least restrictions on chain migration and an end to the visa lottery system. Brian, that is just lunacy. The idea that we would literally at random allow people to come to the United States makes no sense. And on the national security side, by the way, the awful incident on Halloween, the truck attack on a New York sidewalk where 8 innocent people were mowed down. He was here because he won. I mean, I don't even like to use that term, but he won the visa lottery. That's just an outlandish and unsafe system to allow anyone in the United States. It has to be merit-based. What kind of skills and drive do you bring to this country? And do you love our values, love our Constitution, and embrace the system that is America and want to be self-sufficient?
All right, yeah. If you're going to bring a pipe bomb with you on the lottery system, you're going to hurt everybody else. Meaning that's what happened to the Port Authority. Thanks, Steve. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead in the next hour and 50 minutes, a jam-packed year from politics, from the highs to the political lows. A closer look at the best and worst messaging moments. That's coming your way.
24 minutes after the top of the hour, time now for some quick headlines. First, starting with the latest twist in the Virginia House race we've been talking about. Turns out the winner may be picked, drawing a name out of a bowl. Democrat Shelley Simons losing her one-vote lead against Republican David Yancey. After a 3-panel judge determined that the race was a tie, the Board of Elections will now likely pick a winner at random. So stay tuned to that. Meanwhile, in other news, the Republican National Committee outraising Democrats by a big number. The RNC took in $8.2 million last month. That's a record for a November in a non-election year. Democrats taking in less than $6 million. Quite a discrepancy. All right, Ainsley.
Thank you, Steve. On the heels of a huge tax reform victory for Republicans and for Americans, President Trump's super PAC launching a $1 million ad this Christmas, touting his accomplishments and ambitious agenda. Take a look.
Everyday Americans are standing up to thank President Trump.
Thank you so much
for making America great again.
Thank you for cutting my taxes.
Thank you for fixing our economy.
Thank you for keeping my family safe.
Thank you for putting America first.
Thank you for supporting Israel.
As veterans, thank you for reminding us to stand for our national anthem.
Thank you, President Trump.
Thank you, President Trump, for letting us say Merry Christmas again.
Here to react is President and partner at Maslansky and Partners, Lee Carter. Lee, what kind of an impact is that going to have?
You know, I think that what they're trying to do here is remind people of all the president has accomplished this year. And the mainstream media isn't covering it, so they're going to have to tell their story. We always say if you don't tell your story, someone's going to tell it for you. And so this is a way of reminding us, look what he's done for the veterans. Look at tax reform. Look at what's happening for middle America. And I think it's a smart way for them to do it, rather than having the president tout himself or the people that are closest to him. This is just a message back from the American people.
Let's look at some of the messages, the best and the worst of this year. The best of the president. What's your number one?
Number one was the inaugural address. Now, a lot of people remember some of the more controversial remarks that he made there. Although when we tested that, I don't know if you remember that back in January, the American people really resonated with it. And even a lot of Democrats did, specifically his message. Let's take a look here.
Today, we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another or from one party to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people.
And so when he talked about this idea of returning government to the people, this is the thing that people keep coming back to. Through all the controversies, through everything else, people keep saying, you know what, he is fighting for me. There was no reason for him to run for president unless he wanted to do this for the American people. A lot of people resonate with that message, and I think it was one that was really strong and smart for his inaugural theme.
Another one? Do you have another one?
So this next one is somewhat controversial, I think, but the president calling Kim Jong-un Rocket Man, the way that he uses some of these digs, these nicknames, while some people say they don't like it, they stick and they really have lasting impacts. Let's take a look at this one.
The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
A lot of people did love that speech.
A lot of people love that speech. And the idea of Rocket Man is something that's been just continuing to be talked about, whether it's Rocket Man, fake news, crooked Hillary. Think of all the names that he's called it. He controls the narrative when he does things like that and really gets headlines on it. So it's a smart move on his part.
What were some of the worst of this year?
So some of the worst, I think, were unintentional. So if you remember, Senator Jeff Flake was caught on a hot mic talking. Let's take a look at it.
Become the party of Roy Moore and Donald Trump. We are toast.
And I'm not throwing smoke at you, but you're the guy that could, just for fun, think how much fun it would be just to be the foil, and to point out what an idiot this guy is.
Forgot they were wearing the mic. Yikes.
That's right. Think how much fun it would be. Now, there clearly was a lot of antagonism in that relationship. No question about it. Not all that surprising. This is the kind of conversation was having. Certainly didn't do anything to elevate the status of the senator.
Anything else?
Yeah, we do have one more. And this was one that I was really upset about personally, and I think a lot of people were too. When after all the shootings, people said thoughts and prayers, and they started going after that. Let's take a look at this one. I mean, this was brutal, and it wasn't just Bill Maher. It was a number of people came out and said thoughts and prayers aren't enough. I understand people wanted gun control. They didn't want these kinds of things to happen, but thoughts and prayers are really important, and prayers are not just wishing on a star. Prayers are an act of faith on people's. It's saying that I do want change, I want intervention, and I want God to be here and comfort those folks. And so I think a lot of people were terribly offended by this. It did not help the Democrats' cause at all, and it certainly didn't change any minds of the people who.
I think it's more. I just think it's more sad.
Yeah.
I hope he realizes the power of prayer one day in his life.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Lee. Great to see you. Merry Christmas. Well, he helped write the tax bill and stood at President Trump's side, celebrating the historic victory. Then he was called a prop this morning. Senator Tim Scott fires back.
Moment in all of Christmas cartoons.
What?
When Frosty gets in the hothouse and is nothing but glasses and a carrot. I mean, that was.
So
I didn't think things were going to be the same. Like, this better turn quickly.
Did you have to watch it more than once? Because it always ends the same way.
Well,
at the end, Frosty's
still, I'm up to that moment. I forget things.
It's like Rudolph. Did you watch Rudolph this year? I'm watching it this year. I'm like,
bullying.
That's really sad.
Yeah. Bully, just because he's got a red nose, can't fit in.
But he wins in the end.
He does win. He always wins. That's great.
But it's hard to watch in the beginning.
Right. But Santa was great in that.
Okay.
Santa's always great.
Oh.
It's Santa. Just saying. Meanwhile, speaking of Santa, the countdown to Christmas, just 4 days to go until Santa comes.
And Todd Pyro is live inside the Amazon Prime hub in New York City with more on the mad rush for deliveries. And Todd, we're getting close.
Yeah,
You're actually on.
We are getting close, yes. I'm being interrupted by people trying to do their jobs. That's what's going on here. All right, let me explain some things. Take a look at this row. This is just one row of products in what really is one of their tinier warehouses here at Amazon. Think about this. This is one of the 30,000 square foot ones. They have about 71 million square foot ones. That's like 28 football fields full of everything you could possibly want for Christmas. So just so you get a general sense, this is really Amazon's Super Bowl week. And let me explain something to all you procrastinators out there, Brian Kilmeade. Here's how this works, okay? If you have Amazon Prime, you can order your products up until Friday. 2-day delivery will get it there by Christmas. Other people, if you're in one of those areas where they can do same-day shipping, you can order it Christmas Eve and get it there by Christmas. And for those places like we are here now, which is an Amazon Prime Now facility, you can order it within, let's say, a couple hours of 11:59, and you will get it 11:59 on Christmas Eve. How intense is that? All right, I want to give you guys some gifts. So this place has everything. Just a little something for the president, little Diet Coke for the president, because I know he likes that. Steve, I got you the Gotham Crisper Tray, advertised on the Fox News channel.
I've already got
early
one.
And often. This is a great product. You already got one? Well, now you have two. It's the gift that keeps on giving. For Ainsley, we got you, yes. Oh, time out. I got to get you something different. Sorry, they wanted me to do the Fire 10. Ainsley, so you can read your book to your child, the Fire 10 HD.
Great. Thank you.
And Kilmeade, this is not a joke from me. This is a joke from AJ. He said this would be funny if we get Brian the Design Drill Activity Center because he's the man of the house.
Right.
So if you don't like that joke, Brian, it's
By the
AJ
way,
Hall.
He can take it home to Dawn.
Right,
That's
absolutely. Nobody's more uncomfortable with power tools than me.
All right.
They fight back.
So, Todd, it looks like that is a giant library. It's almost like a library, the way shelves and shelves and shelves and shelves. And instead of books, you've got a million things.
And Steve, what makes it so interesting here, we have the folks at Amazon explain this to us. There's no rhyme or reason to you and I as to their system. I mean, look, we've got like Coke and chocolate and pet food, but the way they do it, it's all about spacing. They find a place to put spacing. They put the items here. They code them. They know where things are. Okay. Their system clearly works. They're Amazon.
They are indeed. .com. All right. Todd, thank you very much for the tour of Amazon Prime right here in New York City.
Thank you, Todd.
All right. Meanwhile, prime time for news, Jillian.
That's right. Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's get you caught up on some quick headlines right now. The United Nations General Assembly voting today on a resolution condemning President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. And President Trump has a warning for those countries who vote in favor of it.
Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care. But this isn't like it used to be where they could vote against you and then you pay them hundreds of millions of dollars and nobody knows what they're doing. We're not going to be taken advantage of any longer.
Trump's Jerusalem decision has been met with protests throughout the Middle East. The president and GOP leaders gathering to celebrate the tax bill. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott front and center. And that didn't sit well with one Huffington Post contributor who tweeted this, quote, "What a shocker. There's one black person there, and sure enough, they have him standing right next to the mic like a manipulated prop. Way to go, Senator Tim Scott." Scott responding, probably because I helped write the bill for the past year, have multiple provisions included, got multiple senators on board over the last week, and have worked on my tax reform my entire time in Congress. But if you'd rather just see my skin color, please feel free. That contributor later tweeted an apology. Let's look at your headlines, guys.